Tim, do you think about death much?
Death? I'd say no. I don't really think about death much. Doesn't cross my mind. Why? Why do you ask?
Well, our guest today uses this idea of memento mori, the Latin for remember that you have to die, as a way to live a better and more fulfilling life.
Memento mori reminds me of my Catholic education and Ash Wednesday. In the Latin Mass, when I was really young, they would just say memento mori when they're putting the ashes on your forehead. But later they would use English and they would say, remember, man, that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Good times, really. Okay, Kurt, I'm going to turn the question back to you. Do you think about death much?
I don't know if it's much. It's always lurked probably somewhere in the recesses of my head. I mean, my dad died when I was 22 and he was only 66 years old. And so I've always viewed life from this perspective that my dad's life got cut short and that my life could just as easily be cut short as well. And so you have to kind of make the most of it, and that death is lurking out there.
Well, I would say that is right in line with what our conversation is all about today.
Yeah. Welcome to Behavior Grooves, the podcast that explores our human condition. I'm Kurt Nelson.
And I'm Tim Houlihan. We talk with researchers and other interesting people to unlock the mysteries of our thinking and our behavior by using a behavioral science lens.
Okay, so death. It feels a bit morbid to talk about.
Yes.
But Tim, this conversation is anything but.
Exactly. Like, we had the true pleasure to speak with Jodi Wellman about her book, You Only Die Once, How to Make It to the End with No Regrets. And I have to say the conversation was far from morose, far from morbid, not downtrodden, nothing. It was a fantastic, upbeat conversation. And Jodi exudes a very irreverent and almost joyful perspective about using the idea of death to positively make an impact on our lives.
You said it. I mean, this book may be the most fun and insightful book that we've read this year. Definitely fun. So for listeners, Jodi has a way with words, very getting into her head space almost, and just fun. Made me laugh out loud a few times, and still achieving our gold status, Tim, of many dog-eared pages and underlined quotes and various different things throughout. So yes.
Yeah, that is the gold standard. Absolutely. And Jodi didn't disappoint in person either. She was a wonderful guest. She's a clever writer, and she brought a lot of fantastic real world insight on how we can improve our lives by remembering death, or grim, as she likes to call him, as we live our lives. Yeah.
Yes. So we talked about how measuring out how many Mondays you have left can inspire you to make sure that you just don't let them slip away into la la land, and that we need to make the most of them.
Yeah. And why Mondays? Well, you're just going to have to listen to that. Now, we also talked about the dangers of just focusing on efficiency and productivity in daily life, like the need to prioritize self-awareness and action, and taking life a little less seriously through humor and storytelling.
Yeah, and we also talked about the dark side of habits and routines. You know, we talk about how great habits and routines are. Jodi brings in this concept that, hey, they're not always so great. There's a dark side. You can't lurk there, Luke, Anyway, and what near-death experiences can teach us about living our lives to the fullest.
So, Groovers, we want you to sit back with a cup of dead-eye coffee with 3 shots of espresso and enjoy our conversation with Jodi Wellman. Jodi Wellman, welcome to Behavioral Grooves.
Oh, I am so excited to be here.
We are too. So let's just figure out right away, do you prefer coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee. I mean, we really don't have time for tea. Takes too long.
And do you drink the dead eye? Do you do that 3 shots of espresso that you mentioned in the book?
I wish I was cool enough and brave enough to have that many shots of espresso. because I love the name. I'm going to invent a new lighter touch coffee drink called like the Gentle Skull or something.
Oh, I thought it was like maybe instead of dead sleepy eye. I don't know, just kind of, there. Yeah, three shots of espresso in a cup of coffee. I don't know if I could handle that either. Okay, Jodi, second speed round question. Would you prefer to have dinner with your favorite musician or your favorite actor?
Yeah, I think I would say actor. And I'm trying to decide if I have just disappointed either one of you by answering that, because I've heard you ask other people.
You did. Yeah.
Not me. I don't care. It's either way. There you go.
I'm crestfallen.
All right. Well, who do you have a person or somebody in mind?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just my answer is always going to be Oprah. Like I just feel like that's just a default answer because
yeah.
I think we should be ostracized from the planet if we don't pick her first. But so her, and then I'm going to do a creative twist just because like he's in a lot of movies and I know this is going to be so corny, but so I am. He, like the Grim Reaper. Like this is our whole topic. Like he's like I want to talk to anybody who's related to or has played death. I want all the insights.
I would be very interested in knowing when was the first time the Grim Reaper was depicted in a movie or some show, right? And how did they depict in the classical robe? No, I know, like, well, you look back at A Christmas Tale, right? Right, and it's the
Dickens story.
Yeah, Dickens. Yeah,
Christmas. Yeah, damn it.
I can't remember anything these days.
I was thinking like Boris Karloff, Vincent Price. I'm, that's kind of where I'm going with that.
I see you. Yeah.
Okay. Third speed round question. What if you knew for certain that you were going to live for 1,000 years? Mm-hmm. What would you change about your life right now?
This is the best question I've been asked. Gosh, I'm going to start
asking. That's 52,000 Mondays, by the way. Just make that note.
Thank you. Speaking my language. What would I change? This is going to sound like I've got everything figured out, and I sure as shit don't. But I think I would stay the course because I'm already living now like I have a deadline. And in a way, all those extra years and Mondays, you actually illustrated something that I think is problematic for us. It's like we like the idea. Anatole France has this quote, "The average man does not know what to do with his life, yet wants another one which will last forever." And I feel a little bit like I and we are still trying to figure this out. Like, we got to do like all that many more years of delaying my goals and dreams and hopes. No thank. Like, I'm just going to keep trying to chip away at the things that matter.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that there. And Tim, you're going to appreciate this. Sorry, never do a speed round where we don't have a speed round. I don't know why we even call it this. Anyway, Jason Isbell has a song, Vampires, and I don't know if either of you have heard it.
Yeah, it's a great tune.
It talks about if we were vampires and we would live forever. And it's a love song for him. And he's talking about, I only have 40 years potentially with you. And that makes every moment that much more important. And if we were vampires, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't hold your hand. I wouldn't do all these other things. And so it reminded me so much of what you were talking about in your book. And kind of, as you said, we tend to think, well, we have so much time and different things. And when we kind of put that time limit on it, that changes things. So
it does. I just wrote that vampire song down. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Jason Isbell. It's a good tune.
All right, last speed round question. Agree or disagree with this statement? Just because you're breathing doesn't mean you're living.
Oh, I totally agree with that.
That's good because you wrote it.
That's a trick question. You sneaky
Yes,
bugger.
It was. We were hoping to flub you up there, but we didn't.
Oh, no. I've had a change of heart. No, I completely, radically agree. We need to tattoo it everywhere on our bodies. Yes.
Yeah.
Because, we go through the motions. And I suspect we'll talk about that together when we're beyond the speed round. Look at me slowing our speed round down.
Yeah.
You go right ahead.
We need to savor every moment, even if it's in a speed round. There we go.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. Okay. We are talking with Jodi Wellman about her new book, You Only Die Once. And we want all of the groovers to buy a copy, and we want them to read it. And then we want to all laugh and learn together because it's such a delightful, delightful book. So, Jodi, why is feeling alive so difficult?
I dare to find any adult who is going to a job or has commitments that has gotten into this, talk about a groove, okay, behavioral grooves, like a routine, a pattern, and we get into this autopilot zone and we think we're so efficient. And okay, we are. And like, I highly value efficiency, which is a risk. It's a trap, right? Because it's that, look how fast, look how much I'm getting done in my day, but it's not really living necessarily. We're checking boxes, and that feels really like a reassuring, productive boost. But all of a sudden, do you ever do this thing where you're like, what day, like what week is it? Or it's Thursday, but you're like, it's indiscernible from Tuesday. And you feel like you are, here's the words that make me shudder, like going through the motions.
Yeah.
And every now and then it's punctuated by, we went out for a dinner, or, we went to a concert. But then you're really feeling at the end of like a month or a week or a year, like, is time just passing me by? And I believe that many of us, those of us who have any desire for, love and joy in our lives, so like a vast majority of us, have that sneaking suspicion, and we're kind of afraid of it. So we get into the motions and we're efficient and productive, and then we become these highly functioning zombies. And we come by it honestly.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
It's interesting, Jodi, because I do a journaling practice every night. I've been doing it for a number of years now. And lately, though, one of the things that has been missing is I actually skip some days, not on purpose, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting if I go back and try to think, like, what did I do 3 days ago? And sometimes it's really easy to remember because you have those moments. And then other times it's, I don't know what I did on Monday. And that is scary when you think about that. I can't remember. Nothing stands out from my Monday or Tuesday that I can remember. And thus, is that really living, to your point? So
you're making me think about, you know how when you're on a plane and like our first mission is to never speak to the person beside us, I don't know if you're with me. Clearly, I'm antisocial.
Open the book, put the headphones on. Yep, stare straight
body
ahead.
Language.
Yeah.
Well, on one plane trip, I got suckered in, and I'm so glad I did. This lovely woman, Allie, and I got talking, and she was very clear. She's like, I just don't want to get to the end of my summer and have nothing to show for it. And it sort of struck me, that idea of, because I think sometimes, like, I think I'm okay, Kurt, to let like a Monday slide. I'm not a Monday in my world. We got 4,000 of them. Those fuckers have to count. But I think it's okay for like the odd day to get kind of like put into the hopper, because otherwise, there's too much stimulation.
Yeah.
But when you look at things, I think in bigger blocks, like the long weekend, or like the summer, or your vacation where you are off, you're going to rally to check, or it could be a very key year of your life. Like these discernible moments, I think, are opportunities for us to stop and say, how do I want to look back on? Like, for example, the summer of 2024. And those are chances, I think, to be more deliberate. Like, that's what we're talking about, is going, do I want to have something to show for it? And to be clear, not show for it like that's going to make all my friends jealous because it's going to look so good on Instagram. No, it's not about the outward optics, or like, show for like, it's got to be glitzy or expensive. Because no, that's not it either. Usually it's just like making yourself feel like I showed up this summer to live. I did stuff that actually savored the summer or fall or long weekend or last weekend with the kids before they went away or fill in the blanks.
You bring up this idea of intentionality, and disruption and intentionality sort of live for me as dual themes throughout the book, right? That there's both this need to disrupt, but there's also this need to be intentional. And both of those are really hard for human beings. Like we're not very good at it. And so what's your best tip for sort of snow globe shaking up your life?
Yes.
How do we get to that point where we start to go, okay, this is how I want to remember the summer of 24, and then I'm going to do it.
Yes. Okay. I love where you're going with it, because in addition to what I hope is, baked into the book deeply, is this idea about, yes, there's like a becoming aware. It's the awareness first. So I look at it like, a friend of mine read the book and she's so cute. She actually did a PowerPoint presentation about her take on the book. I've never had, wow. like grade A
Good
friend.
friend.
I
Wow.
know. And she said, she helped me see, she goes, what you've done is you have like awareness and then intention and then action. And that, oh my goodness, it's encapsulating everything. It's like, so this is our life, right? Awareness comes through this pre-mortem. Like, how's your life going? What's working? What's not? More importantly, what would you like more of and less of? Like, what's the stuff that makes you feel alive? What's the stuff that would make, maybe just go back to our example of this summer, feel kind of cool or excellent or bring you joy? Like, what? Sometimes we just lose the plot about what we even want, again, because we're on the treadmill, or we're looking after other people, damn them, or we're just, we just don't prioritize ourselves. So first step is to fathom, what would I actually want? And many people, they say 72% of Americans at least have a bucket list, but they're kind of dusty, or like having a little bit of like a running tally or a running menu of options of, this is the stuff that I like to do that brings me joy, that I could do in a quick 10-minute increment, like getting clear on what would be good. Because sometimes in the absence of having an idea, then you're not really going to do it. Like, I met with someone yesterday he was saying, I love music. Hello, Tim. Because I love music and I love concerts. And so I will now do a thing. He's making this a new priority this year. He's like, I am planning, I take a band and I will travel to a city I haven't been to, and I will go see the band. Yes, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
You do that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've done it for years. Yes.
This is your life.
Yeah.
You're like, I invented that move.
Well, not at all. But yeah, absolutely love that.
Right. I mean, I realize, I guess fans have been doing this for years. But
okay, but this is new. Like you've made this decision. Like you were aware, and then you made the intention, and now you're putting it into practice.
Yeah. This is this gentleman doing the concerts in particular. But for the rest of us, it could be, wait a minute, I realized that I really want to go and try more restaurants in my town. Or like, I would love to go and pick up my music routine that I used to do. Or I want to get fit because I don't feel energetic. What would that look like? Like tuning in. And my language, of course, because we all have to bring it back to death, is like diagnosing the dead zones, like where in your life are you feeling flatlined that you might want a little, I don't know, like CPR. And then that's the awareness. And then it's about, well, holy crap, like now I actually have a thing in front of me that looks and feels exciting. Yeah. And now you have the choice point, which is, do I hold it as a dream and a hope and a cool thing I might want to schedule, or a thing that would be good that I know might widen or deepen my life? And now it's like, okay, now's where the rubber's going to meet the road. Because now, to be super honest, I think this is where it gets hardest. It's because now we're usually afraid to pull the trigger on it.
Yeah. Well, you tell the story in your book too about you and Staples kind of, I think, going through this very kind of process. You want to share a little bit of that?
Yeah, very happy to. So I was sitting in my corporate job. I'd been there for 17 years and, it was supposed to be great. And it really was great until it wasn't, like everything in life when, well, was it Hemingway that many things, well, he says bankruptcy happened, really gradually and then in a hurry. I think our careers can sometimes feel like that. Like you get the itch and it's feeling uncomfortable until it really just feels like it's an agitation. Mm-hmm. So I was at my desk one day and I was stapling pages together as, executives do. And I ran out of staples. So, okay, I've got a solution for this. I go to the storeroom and I refill my stapler, and it's not a common event. So I was just looking at this row of staplers as I was putting it into my stapler. And I said, I better not be here by the time this row of staples is done. And, I felt so good. Like I left that storeroom with a spring in my step because I was like, oh, good. I'm like, game on. But here's the thing. I did nothing about it. Yeah. So fast forward a year later, I'm doing my thing again, just as disenchanted. I mean, I got to say for the record, like nobody knew I was disenchanted. I looked entirely engaged, but I was just really wanting something different, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to get it. I was afraid to look around. I just wanted to be saved, to be super honest. Like I just wanted to be headhunted and plucked out of my malaise and, brought into a new job. But so a year later, my stapler ran out and it was like a disgusting moment for me. And so I went and it was this sad moment of refilling my stapler again with another row. And it was like this sad pity voice of like, better not be here by the time the stapler, and I did it again. Yeah. So it's, I'm grateful, to be super honest, that I had that kind of ass dragging lesson about like, oh, honey, like you had to learn that a good life doesn't happen to you usually. You have to make it happen and take risks and do scary things like leave your job or maybe a relationship or your town.
Yeah.
So it always doesn't have to be big life changes. It could just be minor stuff, but we're in the driver's seat. That was my takeaway.
I love that story.
The book is clearly written in the most lovely irreverent style, which again, we just found super charming and really fun to read. And so for those people who are sort of natively irreverent, it's going to hit them with a happiness pie square in the face. Like, don't have to worry about that. But what about people who are, and no pun intended, maybe just deadly serious about how they live their lives? How does the message get through to them? How can we help them take life a little less seriously?
Your wording right there, I was just going to capture. Because so many times I'll talk about how, for example, we need to count how many Mondays we have left to have that sense of urgency to take life more serious. But it's funny because then some people will correct me when I say that and say, or less seriously, like depending on your issue. I always want to make room for that because I'm glad you brought that up. But to actually answer your question, you're super right. Just tonally, not everybody is as interested in irreverence. And, I'm sorry about your luck, but you'll need to go elsewhere if you don't want snark. No, but I hope that in other forums and fashions, like okay, here's an example. I do workshops kind of for a living and like keynotes, and I work with groups and teams and for like their annual meeting or whatnot. And it's motivating. And I can't typically, swear on stage and be as much of a goofball as I can be if I get to write my own book. And, so I recognize there that the tone, I still think when we're talking about the idea of our mortality needs to be like, I need to tread carefully because it's really one of the most off-putting topics that you could fathom. Right. So I do find that making a little bit of fun of it makes it more accessible. Doodling the Grim Reaper makes it even more accessible. Having there just be a little bit of almost like, hey, we're in this together. My goal is that even for the hardest nut to crack is that there's just a little bit of a softening there about, okay, yeah, you know what? While I may not appreciate your flippancy, young woman, although no one's called me a young woman in a while, but whatever. That I can still, thank you. Call me miss, not ma'am. That it's like, oh yeah, you know what? At least I hear you. I can accept now. And even the most reluctant person, maybe in the group or listening to your podcast, who's going to calculate their Mondays will be like, I may not like it. I don't like it either, but I'm going to maybe begrudgingly put my arm around the idea of it. And then maybe that can just be even the subtle nudge that one crusty curmudgeon needs that day to be able to say, okay, fine. I'm going to go and register for that learn to speak Turkish class that I've been putting off for 7 years.
About damn time.
Tim, it's time. Get on it.
It's only so many Mondays left, which I have to ask this question for my wife because I was sharing the book and was talking with her at the dinner table. And I mentioned your Monday exercise. She goes, Mondays? Why would I count Mondays? I want to count Fridays.
Okay.
And I'm like going, I don't know. And so I want to ask why, and you said it earlier, it's like Mondays need to count, right? When we were talking about that. So what is it about Mondays? Why is it Mondays and why isn't it Fridays or the weekend or some other more fun day than most people associate with Monday?
Oh my gosh. First of all, I really like your wife because let's get the weekend going. I totally get you. And this was a totally thought out thing because Fridays are already fun and easy and Saturdays and Sundays. And so the goal partly of this exercise, I'm going to be super honest and it's not a good PR move, but it's about discomfort, right? Like we're counting backwards our timeline to the end. Yeah. It's not like how long has your illustrious life been so far? It's how much is left. And Mondays are just way more visceral. Like Mondays will illustrate, like, especially if you're still in your working years, if like me knowing I have 1,814 Mondays left, that for me, I mean, I hope I should knock on melamine here, but like that for me is the Mondays are going to determine whether or not am I doing work, for example, or am I looking forward to my week in a way that's going to light me up? Or is it a bit of a drag and is it making me feel like I'm maybe in the dead zone? So there's just way more of an experience of potentially volatile emotions on a Monday. Fridays are like, yeah, I don't care. Well, more Fridays, the better. At least Fridays, it's fun no matter what. I don't care if I have 12 Fridays left. Let's rock them out. It's too easy.
I want to jump back, if I could, to this disruption and intentionality part of the discussion, because you talked about something called the habit continuum. And I thought it was a really, really insightful way of looking at habits, because researchers tend to say, well, there's, it doesn't matter if it's a good habit or a bad habit. It's just a habit. But you kind of said, well, you can be pejorative about this. You can be judgmental about it, right?
Yeah, I'm a little bit fierce about habits, and I feel strongly about them. And I will soften slightly, after, I'll start hard and then I'll soften slightly. I think habits are the insidious things that rob us of aliveness. And it's our routine. So let's just conflate habits and routines. Like the things we do when we put the blinders on and just go through the motions in a robot voice like that. Like they are the things that a lot of philosophers over the years have said the lines like it dulls the edges of our lives. And I feel a response to that. I feel like I don't want dulled edges. And the idea that if we can flick the autopilot switch on, that yes, it can help us. And yes, of course, there are some habits and routines that we don't always need to be extra alert and savoring every moment of life, like flossing and rinsing and all those things like that. I don't need to be grateful every time and present and delighting in my life when I'm doing my teeth. So that's okay. And we need to switch off sometimes just to handle the cacophony of the chaos of life, right?
Yes.
But when we are back to the idea about letting life carry us through every day, and we're doing the same breakfast and then the same kind of meetings and the same agendas for meetings and then the same rotation of dinners, which is our issue right now. We've got 6 on rotation here, which we need to shake up. And then the same date night or the same Saturday morning thing you do. These are just chances to say well, what if we took the snow globe, Tim, you mentioned, what if we just shook it up just a touch? And I'm not trying to wreck anyone's life, really. It's because I recognize some people that love habits feel defensive about them because they give us the control that we need in an uncontrollable life. I totally get you. And I am a control lover. But what if it just meant what if you usually do a certain dinner on Friday? What if you tried a different one? Or what if every Saturday you've got a routine where you get up and you do the laundry and you go to the gym and you do whatever? What if you totally shook it up and just went for a walk and did a breakfast picnic in the park? And then you did the routine. What if you did take the long way home? So habits are the continuum. It's it flicks us into the unthinking zone, which is what the benefit of it can be.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking, I just know I go to the gym on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. You know what? That sounds like a good, healthy habit. And even within the confines of that automaton routine, what if it meant that, okay, well, what if Wednesday you totally just did a different kind of workout? You did the, I don't know, aerial yoga that everybody's doing.
Yeah.
Oh, everybody's doing it. Yeah. Everybody should get onto what the hell is aerial yoga?
Ribbons. They go the ribbons, right? Isn't that? Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's doing it, Tim, aren't you? Come on. Damn. All right. Well, we interviewed Michael Norton, who talked about, this is interesting because I thought about this when I was reading the book. Michael Norton talks about rituals, and there's a difference between rituals and habits and routines. And so the same coffee making habit that you do in the morning for one person might be a ritual where this brings joy to them. It's like this, I am brewing this cup. I'm savoring the moment of doing this. And I think there are different parts of what you're talking about where those can be beneficial. And I think then what you're talking about though is that the dead zone habits where you're talking in your robotic voice and you're just going through and it isn't. And I like the difference in how you're talking about those. And I think it's a really important point for our listeners to discern is that look at your life and look at where you can, as you said, disrupt some of those that are robotic in nature. So
love that.
One of my favorite chapters in the book was chapter 5, titled The Ultimate Wake-Up Call, Brushes with Death. Not because I want to have a brush with death with that on our listeners or anybody here, right? I
Death wish.
Yeah. But you bring up these 10 great insights that can help us. We've been talking about savoring our life and living that life to the fullest. And we can do that even without having a near-death experience. Would love your thought. Do you have a favorite? I know it's like picking children of those, and but or even just a couple that you think about that you can share with our listeners about what are these insights from these near-death experiences that people have had and what the research shows around that to help us live a more full life.
Oh, it is one of my favorite topics too. And I am a little bit envious, just for the record, about people who've had the gift of almost dying and then not dying. I wouldn't want that for myself either. And I'm careful what you wish for. But I do agree that they have access to something we don't. Like it's this awareness, this perspective, I guess is maybe the best word. And I know psychologists call it the roar of awakening. And I love that phrase so much. It hurts, I want to roar. Don't you want to roar? Like a painless roar and like a medication-free roar of awakening, which again, I think actually just to underscore this, like awakening is really what I think we're talking about, is like waking up to life in a more conscious way, to be like, oh gosh, there's so much more to savor while we're here. So of the benefits that come out of research, and I think I see this just so often in the work I've done, even anecdotally, with people who have come back from the brink.
Yep.
It could be like a rough diagnosis and now they're in remission, or maybe they, almost drowned and thankfully they're back home. One of the most attractive ones, and this just could be personal because I think I struggle with this one myself, is how they just are so much clearer on what matters, like not just what to prioritize, like, oh, these are my priorities in my work and life and business and so on. But more importantly, like they know what to eliminate. They know the clutter in life that just really no longer matters, the trivial stuff. And it's almost like they just, and I'm painting a broad paintbrush for everybody who's ever had a brush with death. So someone listening might be like, well, that didn't happen to me. And that might make sense. But even the hint of this idea, like, I almost died and I got out of the hospital and here I am. And I don't care about your stupid request for me to come and, I don't know, what would be something like, so you might be asked to be on some kind of a extra volunteer committee and you don't want to do it. You don't have time to do it. But the old you would have said yes because of obligation or like a pleasing mentality. And now a lot of people who've emerged post death brush are like, I know how I have boundaries now. And I'm not going to be a dick about it. I'm not going to, disparage your incredible committee. No. I'm just like, you know what? I'd love to. I don't have time. Because that's the thing. Time. I don't have time to do the thing, whatever that is I don't want to do. Go visit grandma. I don't have a grandma, so I can say that and not be like blasphemized. Like, I don't have time to go and do anything that you don't want to do in life that normally many of us just feel. I don't have time to maybe worry about the emails that I'm letting clutter up because I'm prioritizing my time differently. I see now that it's maybe more worth it for me to go and spend time brushing my cat, maybe more than going and doing whatever the thing is that I used to before I almost died, feel obligated to do.
Yeah.
One of the terms, thinking of greatest hits and favorites from the book, was you have some really just all-star phrases and comments and terms. And alive-alicious is one of my favorites. You asked the question, you posed the alive-alicious question is, I feel most alive when blank. And I'm curious how connected you are to feeling alive-alicious all the time.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'm going to be super honest. I work at it every day. And I think I'm so attracted to this topic and love talking about it because it's the dose of medicine I need every day. So my inclinations are as follows, and then maybe some of you will relate. And I'd love to ask you two both too, because I'm so curious about your answers. A, about what makes you feel alive and if it's easy for you or not. Like, I am a homebody. I just love being at home. I love the comfy comforts of the couch. Like, give me a blanket and I'll be under it. I love, I'm a bit of an introvert. I mean, I love to yap and gab and put me on the stage and you wouldn't know it, but I just really love to hunker down. And so it takes extra effort for me to participate in my life. And I will be also, I value productivity and efficiency. So I'm a prime candidate to just all of a sudden get stuck in a routine of working. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I don't know, I feel like I'm in The Shining, like all work and no play. With like way less murder, way less. But
Good.
Yeah, No axes in my home. You all know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
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 Sorry, I had to belabor that.
We are of that generation that understands and sees the shining.
Which we were reminded of recently with the passing of Shelley Duvall.
That's right. Yeah. Gosh, rest in peace, Shelley. So my answer is, this is a daily work in progress. So I have all the skulls and all the reminders, and I kept my Mondays to be the thing, which is, oh, honey bunny, like time's ticking, like you still do the things. So this is a range of things, from do the fun things that add life to your life, that it's just easier to say no to. It's easier to not accept the invitation for dinner. It's easier to not go and see the, matinee or the show, or go and do the lessons or classes. But so do it, because I know I feel better if I have a steady dose of vitality and meaning, of course. But also my inclination is to maybe feel fear about going after some goals too. I come by it honestly. Like, my mom died early in her late 50s, and she had just a bunch of dreams that she didn't execute. And so that actually was the impetus for me starting a lot of this, was this, oh, I do not want to die with just a bunch of dreams stuck inside me, like taking them to the grave. My dear sweet mom, all the business plans, all the manuscripts and ideas that she didn't act on. So it's sounding like a really sad answer, but I will tell you, because I prescribe my life, like in a way where I'm really conscious and I do disrupt it on purpose. I will say I've been having my granola cereal a little too many days in a row. Tomorrow morning, waffles. Like, I have to consciously do that. You should all have waffles tomorrow too.
You know what? That doesn't, my wife is going away for the weekend, and me and the kids are having waffles. There we go.
Weekend.
Yeah, we're doing Saturday and Sunday.
Saturday and Sunday
waffle breakfast. Here we go.
Well, I was just curious for you guys. Like, do you feel like, do you need to, I guess, be encouraged to live? Does it come easy for you?
I find for myself is that it isn't easy, right? That I get stuck in the what I need to do as opposed to what I want to do. And I do find myself looking and trying to be more purposeful about taking the time to go and have that dinner with friends that I don't have time to find that. And so trying to be more purposeful about it as I've gotten older, and just, again, going through your book and reading in some of the upfront pieces about, what are the activities that you like to do? Where do you like spending time with which people, and various different pieces, and just kind of looking at that going, all right, now I need to put, I take that awareness and move it to an intention, and now I have to act upon it. So,
Tim? Well, thanks for asking, Jodi. I know that I'm very much aligned with how Kurt answered, that it's easy for me to get stuck in certain routines that aren't necessarily life fulfilling, but they just keep the tractor moving along at a slow pace. And I know that I've been separated from my guitars for a couple of months, almost 3 months. And because, so like when I started on this journey of finding a new place to live and finding a new job, I packed up all my guitars with the exception of one, and put them in gave them to people to play. I don't want them to sit in storage, but I put one in storage because it was just too damn much of a hassle to drag around. But then I had a gig in St. Louis, and I realized, oh my God, the strength of my fingers is deteriorating and my calluses are weakening. And I was like, I cannot be separated from an instrument for 2 months. It's just too much. That was soul sucking for me.
Oh, I hate that that you're experiencing this and had to. And I also love that it is such a poignant lesson to learn. This makes me so undeniably alive. I need it. It's part of you.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, Tim, that you talk about that, because I would anticipate that you would not have packed. Like, if you would have asked me, what did I pack and what didn't I pack? Your guitars would have been one of those things that I would have said, nope, that is coming with me, at least a couple of them. I know you have multitudes, so there are different pieces there.
How many guitars are there? How many are we talking about?
I'm a little embarrassed to say, but 13.
That to me is like you're maximizing a hobby. 13 high fives to you. Awesome.
Well, I wanted to tie into that, right? So there is this aspect that you talk about in the book about vitality, and you now quote here: "Vitality isn't a fixed disposition. We have the ability to change it."
Mm.
And so I love that because I think it brings out this fact that you talked about at the very beginning of this. It is the element that, hey, a good life doesn't come to us. We need to go out and get it. But how do we change our vitality? How do we go about making sure that we have that sense?
Yeah. Well, vitality, I always find helpful because some people go, wait, what? Like vitality, what is that again? And so the definition that has come up in literature around like academic literature is like the positive health of spirit, which I like the sound of, but I still think it's confusing. And it is, I find using lots of descriptors can help. So I think of life like this is the widening life part with vitality, which is associated with like zest, participating in life, having fun, pleasure. It's what people will traditionally define as happiness. It's like, the experiences, the things that enliven you. It may or may not involve your body, like doing something physical. It could just be like, what floats your boat could be, Tim, like going to a music show, or it could be like going to a new restaurant in town, or traveling, road trip, whatever it is. So it's about zest. And the first step in many people's lives, if you want to expand your vitality, and by the way, my research is very clear and it mimics other people's research, is that this is the bigger issue, is that people want more vitality in their life as opposed to its opposite spectrum of well-being, which is the deepening life with meaning. It's not that we don't need and want more meaning, but it just many people have identified, they say, well, I might have enough meaning in my life, but I'm a little bored. I need a little more of the fun, or I need a little more of the action. So the first step, I think, is eliminating the things that might be deadening you. Like sometimes we just, we have things that are dragging us down, and it could be the Debbie Downers. And so sometimes that's just a conscious effort to back to the idea about people who've had the near-death experiences. They find a way, and they're not jerks about it necessarily, but many of them find a way to just kind of spend more time with people that enliven them and less time conveniently with people that kind of drag them down. And we all know who those people are.
Yeah,
so that's one
Tim.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I'm going to have to just kind of limit our interaction, man. I'm sorry.
It's been nice knowing you, Kurt. Jodi, can you just tell us a little bit more about deepening and widening?
Yes.
Because those both are important, right? But how does the book and how do you address those things? Yeah.
The framework, I think, can be helpful to just to assess your life right now and at any given time, and a way then to be able to say, okay, which spectrum do I need to maybe do a little bit more on? So the widening of life is about this vitality aspect we're talking about, the joie de vivre. It's like all the experiences you may or may not have in life. It's the in the well-being world, scientifically, like the science of positive psychology, it's called the hedonic aspect of well-being. So it's the fun stuff. It's good. And we need it. And then its counterbalance would be the deepening life aspect. And think of that as like the y-axis, and that's with meaning. It's got, here are the other big heavy words: purpose, connection to other people, maybe doing good versus feeling good is kind of the comparison between the two. It could involve spirituality that matters to some people more than others. It could be using your character strengths, your virtues. And so this is the eudaimonic dimension of well-being for those, well-being nerds out there that know and care about that. And both are important, and some of us have predispositions where we want more fun than other people who want more purpose. And there's no right or wrong formula. But I
both.
think, And, I think back to the awareness and then deciding like, where are you right now? If you were to even take your vitality, the width on a scale of 1 to 10, and then your meaning on a scale of 1 to 10, that's just a great starting point to say, okay, is there one where you might want to nudge it up a little bit on the scale?
I loved. Oh, I'm sorry. I loved in the book where you were talking about the deepening part of that, and you were talking about some of the clients that you work with and various different things, and they're struggling with it because they're thinking that I need to cure cancer. I need to do something huge and big. And you bring up a really important point that meaning isn't always about those large things. It can be smaller things of I'm raising a child who is happy and content, and I am doing something with my community, or even just I'm learning for myself in various different pieces. So I love that part. Can you expand on a little bit on that?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, Kurt, because I think meaning and purpose is one of the words that makes people feel, I think, pressure like that. Am I doing enough? And like, according to society, the answer is always no. So just accept that. It is usually for most people, it's like a collection of things that make us feel like we are in some way mattering or meaning. And it could be like, I'm a really great cat mom.
Yeah.
Like, don't freaking deny it. And so that's a purpose thing that is, and we know this is true because if something was to be gone from your life, you would feel a hole, not just because of grief and losing it, but it's like, there's a purpose there, right?
Yeah.
It could be a collection of, there's someone in a workshop that I just did who he was describing, and he's quite a bit older. He's retired. And he said, I am finding just so much meaning and purpose in he's doing a full on like life review. And it's a really thoughtful exercise. I have one on my website, but it's this exercise where like you really go back and you contemplate and you capture the essence of your life, the highs, the lows, the joys, the lessons learned. And it is a very contemplative process goal. And it's something you can leave for other people beyond you. So that for him is like a legacy building thing. And it's helping him to look at his life. That feels really meaningful. And for other people, it's just their purpose, again, could be, as I use the example that will always strike me. I use this in the book of a woman who was struggling with, well, is it big enough? And then she landed on something about her purpose was to be the person who lit up a room and made every person she interacted with in a day just feel a little bit better, like brighten their day, lighten their load. So she had a busy office job and she was like coming across a lot of people in the day. And she's like, that's my job, is to be the ray of sunshine. And like that to me is, I mean, that's doable for a lot of us. Not that needs to be your purpose, but it could also just be something that's a little bit more character driven rather than starting a nonprofit in a third world country.
Yeah.
It's a lot more attainable, I think. That's for sure. I want to segue just a bit here by starting with the autopilot assessment, those 52 questions, which, by the way, just a comment, the book is full of lovely assessments and tools and quizzes and fill in the blanks and all kinds of things to kind of get you into that acting mode better, more into the doing stuff, I think, really nicely. But one of the questions, question 34, is I like my usual rotation of music versus I like to listen to new music regularly. And Ms. Jodi Wellman, Little Miss Jodi Wellman,
to you, really?
How does that apply to you? Where do you stand on I like my usual music rotation or I listen to new music regularly?
Okay. I'm glad that you're testing me on this one. I'm going to pass this test. Here's how. I'm going to get like an average grade. I'm not going to get an A plus.
You don't have to get an A. Just,
Keener.
Just show up.
So the olden days was interesting because there was this thing called the radio, remember? And you would listen to you'd be like, what song is that? I don't like it. Or you'd learn about new music. But now, Pandora, Spotify, whatever, Apple Music, you're just getting served your same old shit. And actually, It's delicious when I'm like 90s synth, rock, yeah, pop, yeah. And I'm like, more Depeche Mode. But like at some point, you got to shake it up. So deliberately, I do a very goofy thing, not hard for me to be a goof, but like if we're doing a cuisine, my husband and I just like to cook again because we're homebodies. And if I'm making like tacos, I'm going to find on Apple Radio like a random Mexican music station.
Yeah.
And I'll play it. And then last week it wasn't last week, the week before, I did like a Hollywood Bollywood thing because we were making some Indian dinner. So I will try to do it like, that's my cue, is like to stack the novelty on top of things like, ooh, different cuisine. What could the music be for that? But every now and then what that means for me with shaking up the music is like letting, not doing the annoying thing in the car. Like we've got, was it Sirius XM radio, whatever the satellite is, like, the stations. And usually you have a visceral response. I hate that station, or I hate that. No, to be like, you know what? I will let you play this bullshit for this car ride while we go to the grocery store, and it's actually not that bad, or it's interesting, or I like that I'm listening to something that is just not my thing because it maybe also it makes your thing better. Do you guys listen to you listen to different music?
Well, it's only 10 minutes to the grocery store. What the hell?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which it's only a couple minutes to the grocery store, and my daughter has to control the radio. Connect her phone and put her music on in the car for those 2 minutes. And I have come across. I actually appreciate Taylor Swift a whole lot more than I ever thought I would. So there you go.
There's talent there, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you were stuck on a desert island for a year, just you, and you get to take 2 musical artists with you, actually their catalogs, not just the people,
catalogs. Yeah,
everything that they've recorded.
Yeah.
Which 2 musical artists would come along with you?
Yeah. Well, I'd want the range. This is so interesting because I'd want the widening
novelty,
and I'd want the melancholy. You know how like melancholic music is like,
yep.
You guys know what I'm talking about. It's instrumental. Do you know the stats? In fact, by the way, non sequitur, but on point. Do you know the stats about how we love melancholic music?
No.
There is research, and I'm going to bungle it up, but I will tell you, Susan Cain, she wrote a book called Bittersweet about how we just really love the down parts of life. And she says that on people's playlists, according to research, we listen to the downer tunes something like 750 times more than we do the upbeat tunes. There's something about music that's like, it's so like, we want the melancholy. We want to, feel the feelings that maybe are ours or that.
We just like to know that there's other people who are feeling the shit a lot deeper than we are.
I think you're right. I think it is a reflection of like the human condition. Yeah. Okay. So to answer your question, this is so painful. And I'm going to take away, I'm only liking you because you asked that good question earlier that I liked. And this is now going to balance out the question that I hate. And I can't choose like a genre. I have to choose an artist.
No, you don't puss out. Just
don't puss out. Okay, fine.
Just come on. You can do it.
All right. For the width and no, there's melancholy there. Doesn't matter. Okay. I'm going old school. I'm going to go The Cure.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go Dave Matthews Band.
Oh,
so
nice variety.
Good, but I actually like The Cure because with your thing about the melancholy, the Cure, one of my favorite albums is Mixed Up, where it is literally there's a melancholy song and an upbeat song. Like they're almost every other one on that piece. And I mean, it's so Robert Smith is such a great, he sings some of the best downer songs you can ever have. And yet he has Happy Green Cars or whatever that song is, right? Thank God it's Friday,
Yes. Yeah, my husband calls it slit your wrist music.
There are some of those songs within that
I mean, the Smiths, there. Like, hello, I would debate. Maybe I would do the Smiths. Same thing. Fun and peppy. End your life. If you had desert island, it could be really interesting.
Oh, man.
That just really threw me, but you're right. Yeah. Okay. Well, with that, Jodi, we are so grateful to have you as a guest, and thank you for being with us on Behavioral Grooves today.
Thank you, guys. Time is well spent with you, too.
Welcome to our grooving session where Tim and I share ideas on what we learned from our discussion with Jodi, have a free-flowing conversation, and groove on whatever else comes into our dead brains. Oh, that was the easiest one I've had in a long time.
Yeah, that was super easy, but our brains aren't dead. Our brains are alive. They are brimming with activity.
Dead thinking brains?
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. You're right. We are alive. And this is the part that I love about Jodi, this concept of let's take this big, scary idea of death that we try to avoid, that scares the living bejeeters out of many of us, and use it as a way to motivate and inspire us to live more intentional, more fulfilling, more vitality-filled, purposeful lives. And I think it's just wonderful the way that she does it and takes this big, scary thing and makes it not so scary.
Yeah. So in the introduction, we brought up, like, do we think about death? And is it a big, scary thing for you?
I don't know if it's a big scary thing. So I don't know if we've talked about this on the show, but for listeners, so I recently was diagnosed with cancer and had surgery to remove that cancer as prostate cancer. So luckily they caught it very early. So men out there who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, make sure you get your PSA tested, because if prostate cancer is caught early, it's pretty treatable. It's one of the better cancers to get if you want to get a cancer. And so
But it was still major surgery.
still
It was
major
not,
surgery, major different things.
yeah.
But even just the fact I knew that it was pretty operatable and the likelihood would be good. I still don't know if I'm cancer free yet. We go in to get those
Time.
labs done in a week or so. But with that, there was this element of thinking about your own mortality of, all right, this is cancer. This is something that can kill me if this doesn't go well, or if this had spread. Again, at the beginning, when the diagnosis first happened, there was I was actually working away from home and being kind of alone in a hotel room. There was a lot of thinking about what that meant, and the fact that our lives are not endless, that we don't get this opportunity to live for more than, some people, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, wherever that is. And it kind of puts a perspective on life. And yeah, what have we done? I was thinking, like, what have I done in my life? What would be the legacy that I leave? And that's is to the point that Jodi makes, is there's an aspect of that can spur you to make some changes.
Absolutely. Actually, in some ways, that's great. I mean, this supports Jodi's thesis, right? That you can lead a better life. It can be beneficial to you to change your relationship with Grim, as she calls him, right?
Mhm.
The Grim Reaper, right? This actually could work to your advantage. And I have to admit that the conversation with Jodi also kind of got me thinking, maybe I'm not focused on Grim enough. Maybe I'm a little too remote. Like I've avoided not intentionally, but subconsciously thinking and talking about it.
Well, I think that's part of what she's saying, is that we need to bring this idea of death more into our lives, so that we do constantly remind ourselves that I only have so many more Mondays left. I only have this, that my life is not extended on forever. We do not live like vampires in, Jason Isbell's, thing. And that
Yeah.
because of that, we have to focus on our loved ones more, that we have to appreciate those sunsets. Not have to, that we have the opportunity to, focus in on those more important things in life overall. So I think that's really it. And the book and our conversation with Jodi, there were just a ton of lessons, right? In the book, she talks about this thing that we didn't talk about here, but this idea that memento mori, this idea of remembering that there's death, can also lead to the other Latin thing, and I'm going to mispronounce this.
Memento vivere.
Memento vivere, remembering that we must live.
Yes.
And that is just amazing, and what I love about this is something that we can just start incorporating into our lives, that we can bring in this idea of, thinking about death, our own death, and others, and how that makes the life that we live that much more special. So
Yeah. I also found that in this idea of sort of confronting how death can be scary was this idea that we need to be aware. Like, and this is, I think this is part of our theme in when we think about how you find your groove.
yes.
Awareness is a really key part of it. Now, granted, I'm going to quote Laurie Santos here, and that knowing is not even half the battle, but it's not a bad start. It's not a bad way to get started with awareness. And some of the questionnaires in Jodi's book are really great at, maybe they're not like I don't know, they're not bone chilling, but they really got me thinking about, well, wait a minute, how am I spending my time? To
Right.
just start to be aware of how I'm spending my time. What am I choosing to do? What are the habits? What are the deadening habits that
Yeah.
I'm sleepwalking through life with? It was good.
Well, and also just this being aware of what brings you joy, what brings purpose to your life. What are those facets that you want to enjoy more of? For me, it's ice cream, right? I want more ice cream in my life, right?
Is ice cream a big P or a little p purpose? I just want to clarify.
I don't know. It makes a big B in my belly. I don't know if that's part of it, but yeah, it is interesting though. And I think one of the things that we know, right, from our work on finding your groove and different things is that self-aware part is actually really difficult to do.
Yeah.
And you have to
Yep.
set your life up so that you do stop and take some awareness of how you're feeling, what you're doing, what is going on, the savoring of that breakfast omelet that you are just woofing down. No, slow down, be self-aware about this and a variety of those factors. So how can you set up those triggers that will go, oh, I need to stop for a second and set something up? And so listeners, it's like, try to every day figure out some triggers that when this happens, I am going to just do breathing exercise and be aware of how I'm feeling and what's important to me and where the rest of the day needs to go. So,
yeah, I want to come back to that in just a minute, because I'm thinking about intentionality, and I want to get to that in just a minute. But first, I want to ask you about the near death experiences stuff.
Oh, one of my favorite chapters in the book, and we talked about it with Jodi.
Yeah.
But this, I thought, had some of the most just simple things that we need to remember that are these elements that people insights basically from those who, as Jodi says, those who have seen the literal and proverbial light, right?
Yes.
Again, the way that she words this is fantastic. But number one is reshuffling priorities. Number two is this idea of elevated gratitude for life. 3 is dismissing expectations. 4 is deeper immersion in life. 5, embracing the mundane. 6 is rekindling connections. 7, maximizing mindfulness. 8 is creating meaning and growth. 9 is this idea of a spiritual awakening. And 10 is rebirthing aliveness. Now, we can't talk about all of these. And Jodi kind of we could. It would go on forever. But this I've talked about this chapter with both my wife and clients and various other people to really get them to think about different things and for myself as well. But, Jodi already talked about rekindling or reshuffling priorities, this idea that, hey, we need to think about what's really important in our lives. And, as she states in the book, when a person looks death in the eye, their to-do list and day-to-day bullshit becomes less and less consequential, and they begin to hyper-focus on what really matters. Like what? Like the people in their lives actually worth hanging out with, interests that captivate their souls, the work that makes them feel fulfilled, and any of the opportunities that intoxicate them with possibility. Oh my gosh. I mean, if we could just all do that in and of itself.
Yeah. Rock star. That's a big, you talk about finding your groove. You would be in your groove if you could be doing that. And I love that she emphasizes this idea of saying yes to things. It's like, say yes a little bit more than you're saying no. Like move more towards I'm going to give that a try. But she doesn't ignore the idea that we have responsibilities.
Right.
That right? That we have important things to do that are, and sometimes those responsibilities can give our lives a larger meaning. So it's not just about like going off and being, a complete, bozo and not thinking about how you're using your time. Be intentional about it.
Yeah.
Be aware of how you're spending your time now, and be aware of what it could be if you were to say yes to some other things, if you were to reshuffle those priorities.
Well, and there's a part about that, about living above, like that email to your boss. You don't, your boss sent it to you at 10 p.m. tonight. You don't have to respond to it, right? In the big scheme of things, like putting things in their proper places. And there's this element of living above life. And not that, I remember coming back from when I determined that I was going to start the Lantern Group, and I had made the choice, and I came back to where we used to work, BIW, and I kind of had this feeling like I was floating above, and I would see all these people rushing around crazy about doing this or that. Then it would just felt like, why are you getting so worked up over this mundane, trivial stuff? And I think that's this feeling that we need to do. So I do want to catch on a couple more of these, though, besides just this one. So some of these that really resonate with me is elevated gratitude for life.
Yeah.
And I'm going to quote from the book again, because I think she writes this so wonderfully. Quote, "When was the last time you felt thankful to have a heartbeat, to have legs strong enough to walk up and down the grocery store aisles, and to have the gift of being here?"
Yeah.
You think about just the sheer gratitude for being alive that we dismiss. We look at, oh, I have all this shit piling up on me, or I feel this, and my life could be this, it could be that. I'm missing out on X. I haven't achieved Y, and we don't appreciate the mere fact that life is a gift.
Yes, I think that she is particularly adept at paying attention to what's happening in the world. And I think that she's particularly well suited for elevating gratitude for life. But that doesn't mean that we can't do that either. It doesn't mean that if you don't have that natural sensitivity, that you can't just get out and just breathe and just take in the physical world around you. If vision occupies 30% of our brain, let your eyes start. You don't have to smell or do any other sense foraging. Just start with your eyes and just say, what do I see? My gosh, look at how beautiful the green in the trees are today because it rained yesterday.
Yeah. Start with your eyes, but then use your sense of touch and feel, again, sense foraging. The episode that we did with, drawing a blank on their names, but we'll put it into the show notes, and we can just take note of those things and be grateful for them. I think it's amazing. The other piece, Tim, that I really loved, there's a couple of these that I love them all, but embracing the mundane. How many times have we talked about this with Finding Your Groove, right? This idea that, everyday stuff, and it goes back to this idea of this gratitude for life, right? Even the mundane stuff is a gift. This idea that, there's an ordinariness of life that sometimes we go, oh man, I wish I had more. I wish I had that. And it's like, no. The mere fact that I wake up in the morning and I do the, simple things of getting up and
brushing my
teeth. It's like, you know what? There's something about that is actually kind of fun. Well, I don't know, fun, but but there's something about that you can appreciate. The conversations with your kids that just don't go anywhere, but it's just there. You have it over dinner and you're talking, I don't know, what did they do? Oh, they played a game today. Okay, well, what was the game? Oh, it was this. It was, oh, that's cool. And you might forget it 2 days from now, but you know what? That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I do one more? I just like to talk about rekindle connections for just a minute, because, and I think, I mean, I don't remember what number it is, but
It's
when
number
she talks
6.
about, I mean, it reminds me of Regret, Dan Pink's book, which is fantastic. There's a great story about rekindling connections there. But Jodi writes about rekindling connections in her book. She says, approaching death highlights all that we have to lose, as well as who we have to lose.
Oh,
And like that, like if we start thinking about, well, wait a minute, if I could die tomorrow, everyone else in my life could die tomorrow.
mm,
And how many thanks, I have brothers with very serious disease states, and I think about them, and I think about, okay, so how many more Thanksgivings am I going to have with these guys?
mm-hmm.
How many more holidays of any kind? How many more Fourth of Julys? How many more summers? Meals on the patio. And they live, 500 miles from me. But the, it starts to, just that awareness makes me think about making sure that those connections don't die, as well as good friends that I've had for a long time that I want to stay in touch with.
Yeah.
I don't want my moving around the country to be a reason to not stay in touch with people.
Well,
Rekindling connections is a really important thing.
and just this idea that we turn, I'm too busy. I'm too busy to reach out. I'm too busy to, oh, they invited me out to the Twins game, and it's like, oh, it's late. I'm tired. You know what? Just do those things, right?
Yeah, say
Just
yes.
say yes. And
Mm-hmm.
this idea of, so here, listeners, right now, pause after you listen to me, pause the recording, go to your phone, look up your connections, find somebody, a friend, acquaintance,
Mm-hmm.
a sibling, somebody in your life that you haven't talked to recently, and just send them a text. Say, I'm thinking of you. Would
Yes.
love to find some time to
Yes.
connect.
Yes.
Go do that, right? Pause and go do that.
Okay, now we're back.
And if you didn't pause, do it now.
Yeah. I want to move on to we talked about intentionality, and I think that this couples with awareness in the idea of making your life deeper and wider, which is Jodi's theme. I love this idea of not just deeper, not just wider, but both.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of that comes certainly through awareness, but intentionality. You have to be willing to wake up and go into your day and look at the world with a sense of intentionality that helps us find our groove, that
Yeah.
helps us live a more joyful and more productive life when we have that little bit of it. Even if it's, okay, I'm getting in the car, I'm driving to work, I'm going to get on the train, I'm going to commute to work. How am I going to make this? How
Yeah.
is my commute going to be? What am I going to make of it?
Yeah. And there's an aspect of this that I think too often people think about one or the other, right?
Yeah.
I need to go out and have more fun and have more adventures. I need to go take that trip to Bali. I need to go climb whatever mountain. I need to go do this and have all these experiences to live my life fully. Or vice versa. I need to go and make sure that I am living my purpose and that I am changing the world and I'm doing this or that. And what Jodi brings is this really nice perspective that says, yes and yes. It is not one or the other. If
Mm-hmm.
you live too much in one of those areas, too much of this vitality of wide and experiences and this hedonic part of our lives, then we lack this meaning. And if we live too far into the purpose or the eudaimonic, how do I pronounce that?
Eudaimonic. Yeah.
Eudaimonic
Well done.
aspect
Yeah.
of our lives, then we're missing out on these other aspects. And so there's this wonderful balancing act that we need to do. And the other thing, the piece that I always kind of, and we've talked about this before, is purpose doesn't always have to be I'm finding a cure for cancer. Purpose can be, as Jodi said, I bring joy into people's lives that I interact with. I find, the aspect of, teaching my kids how to be good human beings, that's P, right? That's a little P or a big P, but yeah.
Either one. Ice cream, little P, but that's okay.
Big B. There you go. Big belly.
I think we should wrap here.
Yeah, we should wrap it up. So
with that idea, if you have enjoyed our conversation with Jodi, in fact, if you enjoy any of our guest conversations, we just want to encourage you to buy their books.
Yes.
Go out and support them. Let them know that, you know what, first of all, there's more to gain. And it sort of just shows them that, you know what, this is all worth it. Like having these conversations so that you can consume this content for free is really worth going out and spending a few bucks on their work, because it's really, really good work. So I just want to say that.
And if you did like this conversation, and after you buy their book, or maybe before you buy their book, you might also want to share it with others in your network of connections that you are going to text and say, hey, I've been thinking about you because I just listened to this great podcast called Behavioral Grooves, and you should listen to it. And by the way, let's get together, right? So
share the love.
Share the love. So with that, folks, take this idea of memento mori and remembering that death is out there to provide you with some really great insights to find your groove this week.